Hi! It's Halloween once more, and this time I got a decoration and I even got a costume. A neck for Liver Dead too, or at least with the top of it. Sadly, I can't go trick-or-treating because I live in Asia. We don't celebrate Halloween over here. So the next bit of option is to play some horror games and make a wheel to say what should I play because why not? Okay, let me just... That's better. It's October, and you know what that means? Danger? It's Halloween once again, with trick-or-treating, goofy costumes, and horror beyond our comprehension. And what better way to experience those things than with the media of video games? And although most of the mainstream horror games are mostly non-existent, the indie side is still strong and if not carries the entire horror genres with games like Five Nights at Freddy's, Under the Eight Pages and Amnesia, and more recent games like Iron Lung, Poppy Playtime and Never You 2 coming out each year. And one of them being Bendy the Ink Machine. You know, that one indie horror game that was a big deal during 2017. I remember first seeing this game back when I was like 11 and was on vacation with my family back in 2017 on an HGTV video, out of all things, and DA Games music video. And I did play the Steam demo and a bit of Chapter 2 and 5 on the mobile port, but I never played through the entire game entirely. I just played for a bit and moved on with my day. And since it's Halloween, and with my morbid curiosity taking over, I decided to play through the entire game to see what was the game all about. But before we start, some background. Created by the Meatly and Mike Mood, with the Meatly pitching the idea of a horror game based on the old school cartoons, and when I say old school, I mean really old school, like back in 1920s to 30s. And after only 5 days, which is crazy impressive, the first chapter of the game was completed and was put on Game Jolt mainly for fun, and it went viral. I honestly don't know why it went viral, to be honest. Not as Five Nights at Freddy crazy viral, but viral enough to get massive attention from the internet. And seeing this, both Meatly and Mike Mood did what any other developer would do when they see their game goes viral. I'll go for 500 for milking the hell of it. The later chapter was released almost in a span of a year, with Chapter 2 and 3 releasing in 2017 and Chapter 4 and 5 releasing in 2018. And the development team expanded from a two-man team into a full-fledged studio. And during development, they released a side game, mobile game, books, plushies, toys, a couple short animation, console and mobile ports, you know, the basics. And they even announced a sequel soon after the final chapter was released, and the reveal trailer was released on April 15, 2019. And 2 more trailers were released middle and the end of 2019, and radio silent. No trailers, no updates, nothing. The game was completely radio silent, and I think it probably had to do with the company Kindly Beast, or more specifically the Meatly and Mike Mood, getting swept up in controversies. Now, I'm not entirely aware of the whole Kindly Beast controversies. There's a new video made by Chris Porto that does a way better and more in-depth to the whole situation than I could ever do. But to give a short explanation, the situation stemmed from one of their new games, Shadow Bandit. According to one of the developers on a Reddit post, he or she explained that the original game was developed and envisioned by he or her and the rest of the development team of the game. But the Meatly and Mike Mood didn't really like the idea of the development team making the game in their vision instead of their vision. Because yes, how dare they make a game in their vision instead of our vision? Both of them scrapped the entire game before releasing it and rebuilt the game in their image without telling the developers. And when the game didn't do as well as Bendy did, it ended up firing 50 employees before Christmas without even notifying them. And although the company was involved with other scandals, but the whole firing 50 employees was the final straw and led to Kindly Beast and its creators disappearing from the face of the earth. And it left many fans believing that the game was privately cancelled and was never going to be released. And thus the entire Bendy franchise was... Wait, what do you mean the game is already out? What the fuck? Out of nowhere, on November 1st, 2022, they randomly drop a trailer for their sequel, Bendy the Dark Revival, that frankly I and everyone else thought was never coming out, and was releasing in just 2 weeks after the trailer under the new alias Joey True Studio, which I'm still gonna call Unkindly Beast because it's practically the same company and the same people who run it, but only changed their name to one of their in-game company names for whatever reasons. And when the game came out on November 15, 2022, the game was received pretty well, so of course, we're playing the first game. And I could cover more, but we'll be here all day, and like I said, there's 2 videos made by Chris Portal that goes much more depth to the situation than I could if you want more information about it. So without any more delay, this is Bendy the Ink Machine. Chapter 1 begins with Henry, the protagonist, getting a letter from Joey True, his old friend, to visit the old studio, telling us he has something to show us. And can I just say how great the art style looks? The art style is a blend of 1920s historic animation style mixed with a gritty look, and with good lighting making the game look good and quite stand out among others. The only complaint I have with the art style is that it only uses 2 colors, black and yellowish white, which can get pretty repetitive at times, especially near the end of the game. Chapter 1 is relatively simple and doesn't have much going on in terms of storytelling and gameplay, but exceeds in its atmosphere with the ambience of the abandoned studio working perfectly. And the sound effects are pretty good too, using subtle sound cue and utilizing the sound effects as much to their advantage helps make the game feel even creepier. And the voice acting was good throughout the game, and the voice actors did such a good job. Except for Henry. Henry sounds so uninterested no matter what happens, and it makes him feel even more of a forgettable character than he already is. I mean hell, the alpha version of Henry feels more expressive than the full release counterpart. Anyway, while traversing through the studio, seeing our old desk, the break room, and whatever this is, we then come across a massive room, and after powering the lever, we get to see the ink machine. Okay, we need to find 6 items to power the ink machine for some reason, and...
Who put this here?
I don't know, you tell me. You can find each item from different locations at the studio, with the gear from the ink machine room, the plush from the film room, the ink from one of the desks, the music disc from the room with the music player, the diary from the break room, and finally the wrench from Boris's chest. Sorry buddy. And while trying to find said items, you come across a tape recorder. These are your main lore source. They're scattered around each chapter, recorded by different employees of the studio before the studio shut down. You can also find bacon stew lines throughout the studio, adding in during chapter 2 as a joke to Mike Moon love for bacon. And apparently they're also a healing item, which I only noticed after watching a YouTube video about it. You heal very quickly in this game, and since most healing items were not in the combat area where it was needed, it kinda makes it useless other than being a reference. Ooh, I wonder what's inside. After finding all the items and placing the items in their respective pillar, now we need to restore the ink pressure located behind the film room. Okay, we just head to the film room and... Nope, 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 fuck, nope, 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 nope. And under find the lever and... Well, not my problem. We finally get to turn the ink machine and everything went dark. I think both you and me know what's gonna happen next. I will admit, this still scared me. Then the studio is falling apart and we have to run back to the exit, and when I say run, I mean walk because there's really no danger and it's mainly scripted, so you can just stand completely still and still be fine. And when we're about to make it, we fall to the basement, and after going deeper into the basement, we come across a room with a pentagram and get some scissors and... Chapter 2 begins with Henry waking up in a room he passed out, and we move deeper into the studio. Chapter 2 is similar to Chapter 1, but expanded and add more things, like lore. You can find tape recordings in Chapter 2, with most of them being recorded by a man named Sammy Lawrence. It started off with Sammy complaining about the ink machine, saying how loud it was and constantly breaking, but at some point changed with the later recordings talking about sacrifice, rituals, and worshipping the ink machine. It's a pretty solid lore execution, if I only pay attention to them. And while walking through the studio, we come across a mysterious man passing by and disappearing out of nowhere. Hey, a cardboard Bendy! Yeah, this'll show him, and... Wait, didn't I destroy that one? Yeah, I did destroy that one! Why does this keep appearing? Ask Ewan. And after powering the closed door, we enter into the music studio, and when we turn on the power, we get introduced to the combat system. And it's not really great. The combat feels clunky, and sure it's serviceable, and I get that this is a horror game, but I don't know, I just wish the combat wasn't clunky. And we also get introduced to our first enemy, the... Okay, give me a second. Oh, they're called searchers. Huh. They're alright as a basic enemy, but they're really forgettable. We find an exit, but it's blocked by ink, and the valve that can still remove the ink in Sammy's office was also blocked by ink. So our new goal is to remove the ink that blocks the office to remove the ink that blocks the exit by solving puzzles. One of those said puzzles being Sammy's favorite song, where we had to play Sammy's favorite song to get into his writing room. I remember as a kid, I couldn't for the life of me solve this puzzle, and I ended up just giving up. And years later, I still couldn't solve this puzzle. I kid you not, it took almost the entire footage with me bashing my head, wondering what I was doing wrong, until I realized there was a tape recording of Sammy listing the instruments. Can't tell I'm stupid yet? Hey! Thankfully, the next puzzle didn't took me an eternity to solve, for me going down to the sewer-like area, committing first-degree murder in order to get the valve handle that we needed and turn on the valve. And we enter into Sammy's office and remove the ink, and when we return back to the music department... That happens. We get kidnapped by Sammy, saying he'll sacrifice us to escape this ink prison that is so-called body. He didn't get killed by the ink demon.
No, my lord! Stay back! I am your prophet! I am your...
Well, that didn't work out. We got free and correctly conveniently placed axe and make our escape. And while getting out, you can see the ink machine going deeper, which I kinda adore those sort of details, and... Uh-oh. F*** off. Hey, Boris! Chapter 3, we're halfway there. We wake up at Boris's place, and after making him some bacon soup, which he doesn't eat, jerk, and we proceed deeper into the studio. We temporarily split up with Boris and enter into the toy section, and after solving a very easy puzzle, we enter into a room filled with Alice Angels. The room goes dark, and when we approach the glass window... This is Alice Angel, which I'm just gonna call her Susie Angel for later convenience sake. Originally the original voice actor for Alice Angel, she was obsessed with the character, but when she got replaced, she didn't really take it too lightly. We continue to traverse through the studio, following the path that Susie Angel made, and we come across a diversing path between Angel and Demon. Of course I chose the Demon path because I'm not a little bitch and...
Boris. Oh, you scared me to death.
We reunite with Boris, who gives us a weapon. Just checking if it works. And after getting a pretty good build up to a jump scare, we enter into an elevator and arrive at Susie Angel's lair. And when we enter, we see... Oh! Hey, Boris, buddy! You okay? He's probably fine. We meet Susie Angel face to face where she says she'll get us out of here if we do some chores for her. And I hope you like fetch quests because the rest of the chapter is a one big fetch quest. The rest of the chapter feels tedious and feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again with her saying collect this set amount of items and if you return to me, I'll give you another task where to collect this set amount of things. It does try to give you some variety by giving you different weapons, but they practically do the same thing and doesn't change up anything. And while you do that, the Ink Demon, or Bendy, which I kind of forgot to mention, will randomly roam the studio and if he sees you, will chase after you. Thankfully, he has two weaknesses. He's blind and has a memory of a goldfish. There are closets scattered around all around the chapter that you can hide in to avoid the Ink Demon, and even if you go in right in front of him, he'll instantly forget you existed and move on with his day. I honestly kinda like it. Instead of just having the Ink Demon appear at the end of the chapter, having him randomly appear throughout the chapter is pretty terrifying and it keeps me off guard throughout the chapter. The chapter also introduced 3 new common enemies, the Butcher Gang, with Piper, Fisher, and Striker, and are more memorable than the Searchers, having more personality in their design. My personal favorite being the Striker. Something about his design just stands out to me more. Anyway, we do as she asked, finding gear parts, collecting ink blood from ink monsters, and doing one of the most slowest pipe puzzles in my life. Break some cardboard bendies and beat up some of the locals. We then get tasked with collecting ink cards while avoiding another enemy called the Projectorness. And the weapon she gives us... oh cool, a Tommy gun. You know, maybe she's not that bad.
I forgot. It's a little hard to get a hold of. Oh well, better luck next time.
Never mind. We head down there and it's honestly one of my favorite parts of the chapter. The floor is filled with ink, limiting your movement, and when you see the projector light with its scream, it's bone chilling. I mean, you're still doing the same thing, but at least it's somewhat refreshing. But what if I tell you, you can use the Tommy gun? It requires you to shape an ink blob into an ink machine in a toy maker room without dying. And once you do both requirements, you can get the Tommy gun, and it's pretty powerful and can even kill the Projectorness. And if you're wondering, no, you can't kill the Ink Demon with the Tommy gun. I can definitely tell you, I tried. After we collected all the hearts, Susie Angel finally allows us to leave the studio, and we return back to the elevator and...
Have you ever wondered what heaven is like? I like to dream that it's quite beautiful. A soft valley of green grass, blanketed by a warm sun. I don't think I'll ever get to see it. Are you ready to ascend, my little errand boy? The heavens are waiting.
Did you really think I could steal from me? Really think I just let you go? No!
We wake up next to the crashed elevator with Boris nowhere in sight and we go looking for him. And while traversing through the area, seeing and hearing very interesting things, we enter into a library and see this. I'll bet $50 they'll be gone. Where's my money? We find a locked door and we power it by pushing books that pop out, and while doing so... well, that happens. And when we exit out of the library, we come across a large cave-like area, and I have to ask, how much money and wood did they spend and sacrifice just to build the basement? Because it definitely wasn't cheap. We also come across a gap that we need to cross over, and the platform that can get us over is missing a gear. And we get introduced to a new gameplay mechanic, the dispenser, by using an ink bulb and putting it in the dispenser and getting the gear part to power the platform. Which is a pretty cool idea, if it weren't for the fact that it only get used 3 times throughout the game. Yeah. We get onto the platform and cross the gap. We then stumble upon a long hallway where we get another hallucination of arms stretching out to get you and later disappearing. The hallucination only appears twice in this chapter, and it never gets explained why it happens, it just appears twice and never again. Imagine getting random hallucinations. The fuck have I been drinking? We later meet Susie Angel again while going up some stairs, saying she has Boris and if we want to save him, we have to hurry. We didn't see an ink person passing by, and when we entered the door under where he went... well, this is awkward. These are the lost souls, past employees that used to work at the studio that are now trapped. And they're the only ink being besides Boris and Susie Angel that resemble humanoid and do not attack us immediately, with them just mind their own business being depressed. We enter into an event, meeting Bendy again and seeing me when I get a writer block. And after getting out of the vent, we then stumble upon Bendy Land, or at least what remains of it. Originally planned for a theme park like Disney World when Bendy was still popular and was planned by Bertram Peeman, but later got cancelled for unknown reason and the remaining parts was later stored in the studio warehouse. We then come across a haunted house ride where Boris was held captured, but before we enter we need to turn on 4 switches to open the door, and we get to interact with more gameplay. Yay! Okay, I'm probably like 3 to 4 hours into this game and it's starting to get pretty repetitive. I mean, at the beginning it was fine, but later on it just gets tedious since it feels like you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it makes you wish there was a bit more variety, and it tries to give you some, but either it feels the same thing or get underutilized. And it doesn't have to be anything drastic, like Bendy's Laser Blaster Deluxe Edition. But is it too hard to ask for a bit more variety and last a bit longer? And it doesn't help that this is my least favorite chapter of the game. It's not like it's bad, but just more forgettable for me. Anyway, after we play a few carnival games, which although clunky, is kind of fun, don't worry Boris, I'm coming to save you. But right after I get a new high score. And go through a stealth section where you have to distract enemies by throwing cans in the opposite direction, which you can just run past them, but at least the death is kinda trying to give you something new, and sinking past and nearly getting caught by the projectorness. We then enter in one of the most memorable and my favorite section of the game. We walk into the room with a large theme park ride, and next to it is a desk with a tape recorder, and when we play it...
the biggest park ever built. A centerfold of attractions, each one more grand than the one before it. It makes my eyes come to tears at the thought. But then, oh, Mr. Drew, for all your talk of dreams, you are the true architect behind so many nightmares. I built this park. It was to be a masterpiece, my masterpiece. And now you think you can just throw me out? Trample me to the dust and forget me? No! This is my park, my glory. You may think I'm wrong, but I'm
this is one of my favorite introduction to a boss fight. The slow build up to the boss fight where Bertram shows his anger and frustration towards Joey Drew for shutting down his theme park project, and when the theme park ride starts powering up, revealing his face inside of it, it's just so damn good! Too bad I can't say the same thing for the boss fight. You avoid his attacks, and when he gets tired, you hit him in his bolt to detach his arm. Rinse and repeat until the boss fight is over. The boss fight is pretty easy and also not that interesting and frankly kinda boring, but the introduction will always stick with me. And after pulling all the levers, we finally get access to the haunted house, and we take a ride that can supposedly take us to where Boris is at. And after riding through one of the most unscary haunted house ride I ever been, and listening to Susie Angel ramble about something, I don't know, wasn't really paying attention until we encounter...
Boris! Oh no, what has she done to you?
Yeah. Turns out she already killed Boris and turned him into a monstrous brute, and we had to fight him. The boss fight is pretty easy with him having 3 phases of attacks. The first phase having it charge at you, the second phase where he tries to dunk slam you, and his third phase where he throw cards at you. And when he gets tired, he'll drop an ink blob that he can use by putting it in the dispenser from earlier in the chapter to make a weapon to hit him. Do that 2 more times until we defeat Boris, with him dissolving the ink. But before he can mourn, Susie Angel charged right at us and... Chapter 5, we're at the home stretch. We wake up at Allison and Tom's hideout, and do you remember what I said in Chapter 3? Which I'm just gonna call her Susie Angel for later convenience sake. Yeah, that's why. This is Allison Angel, the replacement voice actor for Alice Angel, and she's pretty nice to us. And this is Tom. He's kind of an asshole. They put us in captivity because they don't trust us, and we have a long cutscene of us in there with Allison trying to befriend us, giving us a seeing tool, a tool that allows us to see hidden messages, and you can also use it after you beat the game, which is neat, but it's also kind of useless for most of the game. And Tom is still an asshole. We didn't get abandoned by them due to the ink team being near, and it plays out like, oh no, they have no choice but to abandon you, while I'm just sitting here and like, why didn't they just use the axe that they clearly have throughout the chapter? We use the seeing tool to find a hidden room with a weapon inside that we can use to get out, and we navigate through the area and fight some ink searchers until we come across a port-like area in the beginning of the worst parts of the game. We learned upon a Reddit to progress, and we entered to a section where you have to drive but away from a massive hand and remove ink blob that was stuck in the propeller. And it's pretty boring and it overstays its welcome. And after avoiding the hand, we then enter what seemed to be a village, and when we get close to a boarded up building... Hey, Sammy! Remember him from like chapter 2? Yeah, he's here now. The fight with Sammy isn't that special, you just hit him and back away if you're about to die. Students dance back and forth until Sammy's mask fall off, and when we get close, Sammy will overpower us and try to kill us until...
Sheep, sheep, sheep. It's time for sleep.
Well, there goes Sammy again. Hey, Tom, please don't... Oh. I guess we're on good terms now. We meet back with Allison and Tom and then get attacked by the Ink residents, and this is by far one of the most longest and most tedious section of the entire game. The fight just goes on and on and on, wave after wave, it just never ends. And when it did end it, all I wanted to do was just play a different game. And after going through that slug of a section, we decided to stick with them. Not even 5 minutes later, we get separated with them, and we lose our weapons. Great. We then enter into the next section where we enter the first aid maze-like office area, get an ink block from an ink fountain next to Joey's office, and put in the dispenser from chapter 4 and get the pipe bar needed to clear the ink to progress while avoiding the butcher gang who are patrolling the area. And just like the last two sections are equally as long and boring, and honestly these sections are driving me bored. It reminds me of chapter 3, but at least with sad it didn't take or didn't feel it took an eternity to do. Maybe if the section were short I wouldn't mind it, but it just keeps going on. The only interesting thing that happens in this section is that Bendy randomly shows up, and he doesn't even make an appearance, he just walked past at the upper balcony. Anyway, we clear the ink and enter to the film vault and open up box for some reason, and...
Looks like whatever was here was taken long ago.
Took you long enough? We reunite with them and decide to go to Bendy's hideout to find the item that can supposedly end Bendy and face him once and for all. And how do we know this? I don't know. And after we walk some hallways, we come face to face with Bendy's lair. Sadly, Allison and Tom can't come with us due to them being made of ink and will be consumed by it. So off we go. We enter into Bendy's lair and come across a large throne room with old Bendy cartoons playing in the background, and a tape recorder right next to the throne chair.
It's simply awe-inspiring what one can accomplish with their own hands. A lump of clay can turn to meaning if you strangle it with enough enthusiasm. Look what we built. We created life itself, Henry. Not just on a silver screen, but in the hearts of those we entertain with our fancy moving pictures. But when the tickets stopped selling, when the next big thing came along, only the monsters remained. Shadows of the past. But you can save them, Henry. You can peel it all away. You see, there's only one thing Bendy has never known. He was there for his beginning, but he's never seen the end.
The end.
This is the final fight between you and Bendy, which thankfully isn't that long. And the fight also introduced a new look for Bendy, and although a lot of people were not happy with his design, I don't know, I think the design is pretty cool. There are two phases to the boss fight, with the first phase having you run around and pulling down levers while avoiding Bendy rampage, and after pulling all the levers out, we then enter into the second phase where we do the oldest trick in the book and trick Bendy into breaking some glass pipes. And after doing so, we return to the storm room and play the film, and... Hey, colors! Why does it feel so weird to see other colors? We find ourselves in an apartment, and walking into the kitchen, we see our old pal Joey Drew. We talk for a bit, and Joey says,
"Come visit the old workshop. There's something I need to show you."
All right, Joey. I'm here. Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
Wait. And that was Bendy the Ink Machine. I mean, there are things I could cover more, but frankly, I don't care enough, and I think I explained most of it. The game is kind of a mixed bag for me. I mean, chapter 1 and 2 are solid due to both being the early chapter of the game, and their simplistic and atmospheric nature carries out pretty well. But once they try to expand on the gameplay in chapter 3, it just kinda falls apart. The gameplay foundation was not that great for the things that the developer wanted to do, and just ends up turning the later chapters into a boring action and adventure game near the end. And it doesn't help that the story is really confusing. It could be just me not paying attention to the tape recordings, but after I finished the game, I was still confused. Like, why was Sammy still alive at the village? Why are there two Alice Angels? Why did Tom stop being a jerk? And where's these stairs? And then the game ending in a time loop, which feels like it was made up in the last second, just makes the later parts of the game and the experience of it exhausting and a slug to play through. But compared to the other horror games I saw, it's nowhere near the worst. Sure, it's not perfect by any means, but the game still has its charming and great moments, and I will admit that the game is still scary sometimes. And I could play the sequel later on. I did hear they improved upon the gameplay and tied things up nicely with the story, but I don't know, maybe later. And you know what? I feel like playing another horror game, and this time hopefully it'll be a better horror game. Okay,